Welcome back to America Decides. Not content to allow the third Republican presidential debate that he boycotted, just like the first and the second, to stand on its own, former President Trump held a campaign rally right alongside, time-wise, in Hialeah, Florida, not far from the debate stage in Miami. And he did so while those Republican challengers faced off in that aforementioned third debate of the primary season. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe is in Hialeah, Florida, where the former president is continuing to hold his counter-programming rally. Ed, set the scene for us.
Major, he has spoken today to a few thousand supporters in this city just outside Miami, a few miles from where the other five are debating tonight. The idea was to highlight his support among Latino voters in this part of South Florida that helped him win this state 7 years ago tonight. And then, of course, in 2020 again, even though he ended up losing the White House. The hope here is to remind those of us in the press, remind voters that President Biden's support among Latino voters, black voters, young voters is slipping, and it's in communities like this that he believes he's ultimately going to prevail. What's ironic, however, Major, is while he and others spoke about the dangers of socialism and communism that, of course, resonate and are far more urgent in communities like this, full of Cuban, Venezuelan, and Nicaraguan refugees and migrants, he also talks about Hungary's leader, Orban, who, of course, is no democratically elected leader. The Democrats, the White House would remind us, is someone who has spoken fondly of Russian leader Vladimir Putin, who has raised questions about the utility of the war in Ukraine. So how does that square with this alleged concern about socialism and communism? Be that as it may, a supportive crowd here for him tonight, and he picked up a key endorsement from his former press secretary, Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
And did you have a chance while you were there, Ed, to meet any of the Trump either campaign surrogates or surrogates in waiting, or those who are campaigning for offices of their own, but within the Trump, let us say, orbit or inner circle?
Indeed, we did, Major. We spoke earlier this evening with Kari Lake, of course, the failed Arizona gubernatorial candidate now running for the U.S. Senate. And I asked her specifically how people in this crowd would perceive, would respond to the court appearance by the former president this week and by his children. Take a listen.
This is a weaponization of our government at a federal level, a state level, a local level. And the people here know what's going on. The only people who don't seem to understand it, unfortunately, are mainstream media, who are getting a thrill covering this absolute witch hunt that has been happening at the hands, frankly, of the mainstream media for 8 years. They've been attacking President Trump for 8 years. The people are onto it.
We are a nation that in many ways...
That's a sampling of the reaction from Trump supporters here tonight. Kari Lake, of course, herself a former television journalist, but one who has thrived on media criticism ever since. Others on stage tonight made similar comments, expressed similar concerns about the future of the nation's journalism, and expressed support for the former president, who made passing reference to the trials in New York and elsewhere, and only made vague passing references to two of those opponents on stage tonight. I heard him talk, of course, about Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and he used the various nicknames he has for him. And then South Carolina Governor, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, for whom he also has a nickname. Those are the two they're probably most concerned about, especially in Iowa right now, where the Trump campaign knows they're vulnerable, where they're going to be spending a lot of time and energy in the coming weeks, but where they ultimately anticipate they will prevail by double digits, Major.
Ed, very quickly, any recognition from the former president or Kari Lake about what was obviously a disappointing Tuesday night for Republicans in terms of election outcomes?
Didn't hear it, Major, which is telling, because Democrats certainly would point out that it was Donald Trump who set in motion the end of the Roe versus Wade abortion policy across the country. It was Trump-backed Daniel Cameron in Kentucky who lost. It was Republicans who were supporting the abortion, or against the abortion rights initiative in Ohio. No mention of it by him of real note. Instead focused on President Biden, his legal troubles, and his hope to return to the White House.
Ed O'Keefe in Hialeah, Florida, we thank you so very much for your time.
not going to